crystalline ship appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's orbital sensors showed nothing but the usual traffic of shuttles and satellites. The next, a massive vessel, glimmering like a diamond in the sunlight, drifted into geosynchronous orbit above the Pacific. The ship's hull, if it could even be called that, seemed to pulse with internal light, its translucent surface revealing glimpses of impossible technology within minutes. Screens across the Solar Alliance flashed with emergency broadcasts. On Mars, children were hurried into underground shelters. On Titan, military installations went dark, powering up defensive arrays. On Luna, observation posts tracked the alien vessel's every movement, scanning for weapons systems they couldn't begin to comprehend. Commander Mira Solis stood at the viewport of Orbital Defense Platform Alpha, her dark eyes fixed on the alien ship. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman in her late 30s, her black hair pulled back in a regulation bun, her olive skin bearing the faint lines of someone who had seen too much war. The red stripe on her uniform sleeve marked her as a veteran of the Mars Secession War, a conflict that had nearly torn the Solar Alliance apart just 5 years earlier. "Commander," a young lieutenant approached, tablet in hand. "President Voss is addressing the Alliance." Mira nodded. Turning from the viewport to the main screen, President Alaric Voss's face appeared. His silver hair and sharp features projected 10 feet tall. His expression was grave but measured. "Citizens of the Solar Alliance," he began, his deep voice carrying the practiced cadence of a career politician. "As you are no doubt aware, an extraterrestrial vessel has entered Earth orbit. We have received initial communication from these beings who call themselves the Tahalri Collective. They claim to come in peace." He paused, his steel-gray eyes seeming to look directly at each viewer. "While we approach this historic moment with cautious optimism, I have placed our defense forces on heightened alert. We must be prepared for any eventuality." Mira's comm unit chimed. Admiral Jackson's face appeared on her wrist display. "Commander Solis, report to Strategic Command immediately. Full briefing on the visitors." "Yes, sir." Mira cast one last glance at the alien ship before striding toward the transport tube. She couldn't shake the memories that flooded her mind. Orbital bombardments over Olympus Mons, the screams of civilians caught in the crossfire, holding her dying squad members as Martian dust turned red with their blood. First contact should have been a moment of wonder, but for Mira, it only triggered the soldier's instinct. Assess the threat. On the alien vessel, Serenkar moved with deliberate grace through the luminous corridors. Unlike humans with their rigid spines and bilateral symmetry, the Talri possessed a more fluid physiology, their iridescent skin flowing over a flexible skeletal structure that allowed them to shift their form slightly as needed. Serenkar's current shape was roughly humanoid, adopted after studying Earth's broadcasts, but with elongated limbs and a crest of sensory filaments where a human would have hair. "The treaty archive is complete," announced Terena, Serenkar's second-in-command, her voice a melodic sequence of tones that the ship's systems translated. "All technological offerings, cultural exchanges, and proposed alliance structures are documented." Serenkar's sensory filaments rippled with approval. "And the nanotech reactor schematics?" "Included in full. Some might question sharing our most valuable energy innovation so early in negotiations. If we withhold anything, we give them reason to distrust," Serenkar replied, gazing out at the blue-green planet below. "The Talri learned long ago that half measures in diplomacy lead to full measures in warfare. Across Earth, humans reacted to the alien arrival with the full spectrum of emotion their species was capable of. In the crowded refugee camps of what had once been coastal cities before the climate wars, people gathered around communal screens, hope-brightening faces that had known too much hardship. Here, the promise of advanced technology meant more than politics. It meant survival. In contrast, the streets of New Geneva teemed with protesters, their signs declaring Earth for humans and no alien influence. The purists of Earth, an ultra-nationalist movement that had gained popularity during the Reconstruction period after the Mars secession, led chants about human genetic superiority and the dangers of contamination from beyond. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in New Delhi, Professor Layla Kapoor, an exobiologist who had spent her career theorizing about extraterrestrial life, wept with joy as she watched the first grainy images of the Tahulri ship. "We're not alone anymore," she whispered to her empty room. "Everything changes today." The holographic broadcast began precisely 24 hours after the Tahulri ship's arrival. Every screen in the Solar Alliance, from the massive public displays in city centers to personal devices, showed the same image. Serenka, standing before a backdrop of swirling lights that somehow conveyed both technological advancement and artistic beauty. "People of Earth and your Solar Alliance," the alien began, its translated voice gentle yet clear. "We are the Tahulri Collective, travelers from a star you call Tau Ceti. We come with open hands and open hearts." The universal translation system rendered the alien idioms into human concepts, though something of the original melody remained in the speech. "Our civilizations have reached a similar point of development. You have begun to spread beyond your birth world, as we did millennia ago. This is a crucial moment in any species' evolution, one that can lead either to expansion and enlightenment or to fear and destruction." Serinka's form shifted slightly, becoming more upright, more formal. "We offer an alliance of mutual learning and exchange. We have technologies that could help heal your world's environmental wounds, end energy scarcity, and accelerate your expansion into your solar system. In return, we seek cultural exchange, your art, your music, your philosophies. You have developed unique perspectives that would enrich the collective." The hologram shifted to display technical schematics, a reactor system unlike anything humans had developed. "As a gesture of good faith, we offer this: complete plans for our nanotech energy reactors. This technology ended resource wars among our own kind centuries ago. We withhold nothing, hide nothing. The choice to use this knowledge is yours." The broadcast concluded with Serenka extending all 4 of its upper limbs in what research had indicated was a universal human gesture of openness. "We await your response with patience and hope. May this be the beginning of a journey our species take together among the stars." As the broadcast ended, the screens in the Strategic Command Center of the Solar Alliance Defense Force remained active, analysts already dissecting every frame, every word. President Voss stood at the center of the room, his face unreadable. "Opinions?" he asked the gathered military and intelligence leaders. Admiral Jackson, a veteran of both Earth conflicts and the Mars secession, stepped forward. "Sir, the technology they're offering, if it's legitimate, would revolutionize our entire infrastructure. But it could also be weaponized. We need time to assess." "Time is what we may not have," Voss replied, his voice low. "If their intentions are hostile, every moment we delay gives them more opportunity to study our defenses." The room fell silent as Voss walked to the Central Command console. Without hesitation, he entered his authorization code and spoke clearly. "Initiate Alert Red across all Solar Alliance territories. Full mobilization of the fleet. Martial law is now in effect in all major population centers." Mira felt her stomach tighten as the room's lighting shifted to red. "Mr. President," she ventured, "shouldn't we at least attempt diplomatic?" "Commander Solis," Voss cut her off. "You are hereby ordered to prepare your assault team for potential offensive operations. We will not be caught unprepared if these aliens show their true intentions." "Yes, sir," Mira replied automatically, military training overriding her personal doubts. As she left the command center, her comm unit displayed a priority message. "Prepare to repel any aggression. defensive posture authorized to shift to preemptive measures as deemed necessary by field commanders. Mira read the message twice, understanding its implications. They weren't just preparing for defense, they were positioning for attack. The first mistake happened just 6 hours later. A human interceptor drone, one of hundreds deployed in a defensive perimeter around Earth, detected an energy surge from the Talri vessel. Following automated protocols for unknown energy signatures, the drone fired a warning shot, a low-power laser burst designed to ping off shields rather than cause damage. But the Talri ship had no conventional shields. The laser struck a previously unseen energy field surrounding the vessel, causing a cascading reaction that illuminated the entire protective bubble around the ship. From Earth, it looked like a small sun had ignited in orbit. Alarms blared across command centers. "They're powering weapons," shouted an inexperienced sensor operator, misinterpreting the energy signature. Before Mira or any other senior officer could verify, 2 more drones fired actual weapons, high-energy plasma bursts that dissipated harmlessly against the alien ship's defenses but registered as clear, hostile action. A smaller vessel detached from the main Talri ship, moving rapidly away, an apparent retreat. For a moment, humanity held its breath, expecting retaliation. Instead, a new communication arrived. Seren Kha's voice, calm despite the circumstances. "We understand this was likely an automated defense response rather than a deliberate attack. No harm has been done. We remain committed to peaceful contact and forgive this misunderstanding." The message should have diffused tensions. Instead, in emergency sessions across the Solar Alliance, politicians and military leaders saw only one thing. The Talri's defenses had completely neutralized humanity's most advanced weapons. "They're toying with us," President Voss declared in a closed session of the Security Council. "These displays of forgiveness are meant to lull us into complacency while they assess our capabilities." In the Senate chamber of the Solar Alliance, the debate raged. Senator Elena Rodriguez of the Peace Party pounded her fist on the podium. "They offered us clean energy technology freely. They responded to our aggression with understanding. What more proof of peaceful intentions do we need?" Senator Marcus Webb of the Security Bloc rose in opposition. "Naivety will be humanity's epitaph if we trust too quickly. History is filled with advanced civilizations destroying less developed ones. We cannot risk being the next example." Outside government buildings, citizens took sides. In New York, a peace rally filled Central Park with hundreds of thousands of people carrying signs with the Talri's image and slogans like "New Friends, New Future." In Moscow, militia groups conducted urban combat drills, preparing for what they believed would be an inevitable invasion. Through it all, the Talri ship remained in orbit, a silent, glimmering reminder of how quickly humanity's universe had expanded. 3 days after the drone incident, Mira received an encrypted message on her personal channel. The source was listed only as Luna Diplomatic Channel. Commander Solis. The text read, "Your reputation for fairness during the Mars conflict is known to us. If you seek truth rather than conflict, come alone to the abandoned mining outpost at Shackleton Crater. Tonight, Earth Standard Time 2200. Mira knew she should report the message immediately. Instead, she found herself requisitioning a small shuttle for routine inspection of lunar defenses. 4 hours later, she landed at the edge of Shackleton, a massive crater near the moon's south pole, its depths in permanent shadow. The abandoned mining outpost was little more than a series of pressurized domes connected by tunnels, its equipment long since salvaged. Mira entered with her sidearm drawn, the beam of her helmet light cutting through darkness undisturbed for years. "I am unarmed," came a voice from the shadows, musical, alien, yet somehow warm. "Though I understand why you cannot say the same." Mira's light found the source. "Terena, the Tal'Ri liaison officer, her iridescent skin dim to blend with the lunar environment. Without the ceremonial attire from the broadcasts, the alien appeared smaller, more vulnerable. "You're taking a significant risk," Mira said, lowering her weapon but not holstering it. "As are you, Commander. But risks are necessary when the alternative is war based on misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding? Your ship appeared without warning. Our defenses responded." Terena's sensory filaments rippled in what Mira would later learn was the Tal'Ri equivalent of a sad smile. "We sent advance notice of our arrival, detailed communications about our peaceful intentions, our proposed meeting coordinates, for months. That's impossible. We received nothing until you appeared in orbit." "Someone did," Terena said, extending a limb. In her grasp was a small device that projected a holographic display, transmission logs with Solar Alliance military encryption codes. "Someone has been intercepting our communications. Someone wants this meeting to fail." Before Mira could respond, Terena produced another hologram, this one showing the interior of what appeared to be the Tal'Ri ship's docking bay. The image clearly showed human-manufactured devices attached to the walls. "These were found aboard our vessel yesterday," Terena explained. "Your weapons, planted by someone who gained access during the confusion after the drone incident. They are designed to detonate and make it appear that we attacked first." Mira stared at the evidence, her soldiers' training battling with her innate sense of justice. "Why show me this? Why not broadcast it to everyone?" "Because we believe there are humans who want war, who have orchestrated these events. A public accusation would only strengthen their position." Terena's form seemed to sigh. "We need allies among humans who seek truth." That night, back in her quarters on the defense platform, Mira couldn't sleep. She opened her personal journal, an actual physical notebook, one of the few luxuries she allowed herself, and began to write. What does it say about humanity that our first response to an outstretched hand is to check if it holds a weapon? Have our centuries of fighting each other so deeply ingrained suspicion that we cannot recognize genuine peace when offered? Or is President Voss right? Is caution our only defense against potential extinction? She wrote for hours, working through her thoughts, weighing her duty against her conscience. As dawn broke over Earth, visible through her viewport, she came to a decision. She would investigate privately, gather evidence. If the Tal'Ri truly came in peace, she would not let humanity blunder into an unnecessary war. Thousands of light years away, in the Tau Ceti system, the Tal'Ri homeworld continued its peaceful existence, unaware that its diplomatic mission hung in the balance. There, in cities built from the same crystalline material as their ships, Tal'Ri philosophers and scientists had spent centuries developing the principles that guided their society. Truth before convenience, understanding before judgment, peace before pride. Serinka had been chosen as envoy precisely because of their deep study of these principles. As a historical philosopher specializing in first contact scenarios, they understood the delicacy of this moment, how easily fear could overwhelm reason, how quickly misunderstanding could spiral into violence. "We too once feared what we did not understand," Serinka explained to a small group of human diplomats who had been permitted to visit the Tal'Ri ship under heavy guard. "When our kind first developed space travel and encountered the Mithrai, another species you have yet to meet, we nearly destroyed ourselves in panic." "What happened?" asked one of the diplomats. "A woman from the African Union. A visionary arose among us who asked a simple question. What if we are the monsters in their stories? This perspective shift changed everything. We approached with humility instead of fear, and found friends instead of enemies." Serinka's form rippled with what might have been emotion. "We hope to help humanity avoid our mistakes." The diplomatic meeting was broadcast across the Solar Alliance, but edited versions appeared on different networks. On some, Serinka's words about peace dominated. On others, Phrases were selectively cut to emphasize mentions of other alien species and conflicts, fueling paranoia about a populated galaxy where humanity might be outmatched. Meanwhile, Mira's investigation led her down a disturbing path. Using her military clearance, she accessed communication logs that should have contained the Talri's advance messages. She found nothing, but discovered evidence that the logs had been purged just days before the Talri arrival. Working with a trusted communications specialist, Lieutenant Maya Wong, she uncovered fragments of deleted data, enough to confirm that Terena had been telling the truth. Someone had received the Talri messages and deliberately hidden them. "This goes beyond standard security protocols," Wong whispered as they reviewed the evidence in a secure room. "This is sabotage at the highest levels." Before they could dig deeper, an alert sounded across the station. An intelligence intercept had been decoded, a transmission from an unknown source to multiple cells of the purists of Earth. Mira used her commander's override to access the decoded content. The message was brief but chilling. "Operation Cassandra proceeding as planned. When the false flag succeeds, humanity will unite against the alien threat. Voss will have no choice but to launch full-scale assault. Be ready to support the narrative. Alien aggression, human defense. Long live pure Earth." Mira's blood ran cold. The Purists, an extremist group she had dismissed as fringe fanatics, were somehow coordinating with someone who could influence military operations. And President Voss was either complicit or being manipulated. Before she could process this information, her official comm unit activated. Admiral Jackson's grim face appeared. "Commander Solis, report to Briefing Room 1 immediately. President Voss has made his decision." The briefing room was filled with senior military officers when Mira arrived. The atmosphere was tense, faces set in grim determination. On the main screen, tactical displays showed the Solar Alliance fleet moving into offensive positions around Earth and Mars. President Voss stood at the front of the room, flanked by his security detail. He looked not like a man facing a difficult decision, but like someone whose plans were coming to fruition. "Officers of the Alliance," he began, his voice carrying the weight of historical significance. "Today we face the greatest threat humanity has ever known. Despite the Talri's claims of peaceful intentions, our intelligence has uncovered the truth." He nodded to an aide who displayed images on the screen, doctored photos showing weapons arrays on the Talri ship that Mira knew were not there. "They came not to share technology, but to assess our defenses before their main fleet arrives." Voss continued. "We have intercepted communications." Mira tensed, knowing these too must be fabricated, that reveal their true intentions, colonization of our system. Admiral Jackson stepped forward. "In light of this intelligence, the President has authorized a preemptive defensive action. We will neutralize the threat before it can materialize." The room erupted in questions and strategic discussions. Mira remained silent, her mind racing. She had no proof that would convince this room full of officers already primed for war. And even if she did, speaking out now would only get her removed from duty, preventing any chance of stopping what was coming. When the briefing concluded, the orders were clear. A full bombardment of the Talri ship would commence in 6 hours. Mira's team was assigned to lead a subsequent boarding action to secure any surviving technology or intelligence. As officers filed out, Admiral Jackson pulled Mira aside. "I know that look. Commander, you have doubts." Mira met his gaze. "Sir, with respect, the evidence seems convenient. Too perfect. Have we truly exhausted diplomatic options?" Jackson's expression softened slightly. "Mira, I've known you since you were a cadet. Your concern for truth does you credit." He lowered his voice. "But sometimes, leadership means making hard calls based on the bigger picture. Humanity is fractured, still healing from the Mars secession. Voss believes, and I'm inclined to agree, that a common threat will unite us like nothing else could." "Even if that threat is manufactured?" Mira asked, instantly regretting her boldness. Jackson's eyes hardened. "Be careful, Commander. Question orders like that again, and I'll have no choice but to relieve you of duty." He walked away, leaving Mira with the sickening realization that at least some military leaders were knowingly participating in the deception. 3 hours later, the first assault began. Alliance warships launched a coordinated barrage against the Tal'Ri vessel's energy field. The crystalline ship made no move to evade or return fire. Its defenses absorbed the bombardment, glowing brighter with each impact, but showing no signs of failure. From her command shuttle, preparing to lead the boarding team once the ship's defenses were breached, Mira watched in horror. This wasn't war, it was execution. Her comm unit activated with an emergency transmission, not from command, but from Terraina. "Commander Solis," the Tal'Ri's voice was strained. "We are evacuating our diplomatic personnel to Io Station. Serinka remains aboard the main vessel, continuing to broadcast peace messages despite your attack. Please, if there is anything you can do." The transmission cut off as the next wave of Alliance weapons fire intensified. Mira made her decision. She turned to her boarding team. "Change of plans. We're diverting to Io Station." "Ma'am?" her second-in-command questioned. "Those aren't our orders." "I'm invoking Directive 17, Mira responded, referencing an obscure protocol that allowed field commanders to adjust tactics based on emerging intelligence. "We have reason to believe the Tal'Ri are moving critical technology to their outpost on Io. We need to secure it." It was a flimsy excuse, but her team's years of loyalty to her outweighed their questions. The shuttle changed course, burning hard for Jupiter's volcanic moon. Meanwhile, across the Solar Alliance, the media portrayed the attack as a heroic defense against imminent alien aggression. The doctored intelligence had been leaked to news outlets, which repeated the false narrative. The Tal'Ri had been preparing to attack. Humanity had simply struck first to protect itself. But not everyone accepted this story. Protests erupted in cities across Earth and Mars. Scientists who had analyzed the Tal'Ri broadcasts questioned the government's claims. Military families held vigils, praying that this conflict would not claim more lives after the devastation of the Mars secession. As Mira's shuttle approached Io Station, a small research outpost that the Tal'Ri had been permitted to use for atmospheric studies, another alert came through. Terraina had been captured by an advance alliance team. The Tal'Ri liaison was being held for interrogation, despite having offered no resistance. The next message was from President Voss himself. Addressed to all field commanders, the Tal'Ri leadership must not escape justice. Any officer who captures the alien leader Serinka will receive the Alliance's highest commendation. Any officer who allows Serinka to escape will face court-martial for treason. Mira understood the message's true purpose, to ensure that no one in the military would dare show mercy, even if they harbored doubts. Voss was closing all possible avenues for peace. Io Station appeared ahead, a utilitarian structure built to withstand the moon's harsh conditions. Unlike the crystalline beauty of Tal'Ri design, the station was all human engineering, metal and composite materials, functional rather than elegant. "Prepare for boarding," Mira ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her mind. "Standard breach protocol. But remember, this is an intelligence-gathering mission. I want the aliens alive and their technology intact." Her team nodded, checking weapons and breach equipment. They trusted her. She was about to betray that trust. The shuttle docked with minimal resistance. Io Station's defenses had already been neutralized by the advance team that had captured Terraina. Mira led her squad through the airlock, their magnetic boots compensating for the low gravity. The interior of the station showed signs of hasty evacuation, abandoned equipment, doors left open. But there was no sign of violence. The Tal'Ri had not fought back. "Life signs ahead," reported Sergeant Diaz, checking his scanner. "One signature. Not human." They moved toward the central chamber of the station, originally designed as a meeting room for research teams. The doors were sealed, but not locked. Mira nodded to her team to take up positions, then pressed the entry panel. The door slid open to reveal Serinka, alone in the chamber. The Tal'ri envoy stood before a communications array, their iridescent skin dimmed with what Mira somehow recognized as exhaustion. Behind them, a holographic display showed the Tal'ri ship still under bombardment from Alliance forces. Serinka turned, sensory filaments moving gently in recognition. "Commander Solis, I had hoped we would meet under better circumstances." Mira's team raised their weapons, awaiting her order to secure the alien. Instead, Mira stepped forward alone. "Why are you still transmitting? Why not fight back or flee?" "Because surrender and flight both confirm guilt in the minds of frightened beings," Serinka replied. "Only by maintaining our peaceful stance, even in the face of destruction, can we demonstrate our true intentions." Mira felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Behind her, her loyal team waited for orders. Above them, a war based on lies was unfolding. Ahead of her stood a being who had offered friendship and received violence in return. "Commander," Sergeant Diaz prompted, "should we secure the target?" Mira made her choice. In one fluid motion, she drew her sidearm and fired, not at Serinka, but at her own team's weapons targeting system, a central hub worn by the tactical officer. The system sparked and died, rendering their weapons' advanced targeting inoperable. They could still fire manually, but with drastically reduced effectiveness. "Commander!" Diaz shouted, shock evident in his voice. "What are you doing?" "The right thing. Finally," Mira answered, moving to stand between her team and Serinka. "This war is based on lies. The Tal'ri never threatened us. The attack was orchestrated by the purists of Earth, with President Voss's knowledge or complicity." "That's treason, ma'am," warned Lieutenant Foster, though he made no move to raise his weapon against her. "No," Mira countered. "Treason is allowing innocent beings to die for a lie. Treason is starting a war that could destroy humanity." She turned to Serinka. "Can you prove what really happened? Do you have evidence that human extremists sabotaged your ship?" The Tal'ri's sensory filaments rippled with what might have been hope. "Yes, our ship recorded everything. The planted weapons, the intercepted communications. But we need to broadcast on all Alliance frequencies. Your military has blocked our transmissions." Mira nodded to the communications array. "My authorization codes can temporarily override those blocks." "Do it. Show everyone the truth." While her team watched in stunned silence, Mira entered her command codes into the human interface connected to the Tal'ri technology. Serinka worked quickly, loading the evidence they had gathered. "This will reach every screen in the Solar Alliance?" they asked. "Yes," Mira confirmed. "Military, civilian, everything." Serinka activated the broadcast. Across Earth, Mars, Luna, Titan, and every settlement in between, regular transmissions were interrupted. In their place appeared undeniable evidence. Security footage showing purist operatives boarding the Tal'ri ship during the confusion following the drone incident. Intercepted communications between purist leaders and highly placed military officials. The doctored intelligence that had been used to justify the attack. Most damning of all was a recorded conversation between President Voss and the leader of the purists of Earth, discussing how the manufactured conflict would allow them to consolidate power across the Solar Alliance under the guise of wartime necessity. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On frontline military vessels, officers ordered ceasefire, many refusing to continue what they now recognized as an unjust attack. In cities across the Alliance, citizens poured into streets, demanding an end to hostilities and Voss's resignation. At Strategic Command, the room erupted in chaos as the broadcast played on every screen. Admiral Jackson, watching the evidence unfold, made a decision that would later be recognized as the turning point. He issued an alliance-wide order. All forces stand down. Cease fire immediately. This is not a drill. President Voss, seeing his plans collapse, attempted to flee the command center but was detained by his own security detail, officers whose oath was to the alliance, not to any single leader. On Io Station, Mira's team lowered their weapons. Sergeant Diaz stepped forward, his expression a mix of confusion and dawning understanding. "Commander, what happens now?" Mira looked at Serinka, then back at her team. "Now we do what should have been done from the beginning. We talk, we listen, we make peace." In the days that followed, the Solar Alliance underwent a reckoning. President Voss was arrested, charged with war crimes and conspiracy against the Alliance. The leadership of the Purists of Earth faced similar charges, their organization dissolving under the weight of public repudiation. Terena was released from detention, physically unharmed but shaken by the experience. The Talri ship, despite the sustained attack, had survived with minimal damage, a testament to their advanced technology. 2 weeks after what was now being called the First Contact Crisis, a historic ceremony took place on Mars, neutral ground between Earth and the outer colonies. Mira, who had faced a brief inquiry before being exonerated and promoted, stood alongside Serinka as they jointly inaugurated the Earth Talri Council. "Today marks not just an alliance between our peoples," Serinka announced to the assembled delegates and the billions watching across 2 civilizations, but a recognition that the path to the stars is best walked together, not alone. The Talri made good on their initial offer, sharing the nanotech reactor technology that promised to end energy scarcity across human settlements. Joint research teams were established, combining Talri theoretical knowledge with human innovation. Reconstruction began on both sides. Though the Talri ship had withstood the attack, they had lost some of their people in the initial confusion. Humans, too, had suffered, both physically in the military action and psychologically in confronting how close they had come to an unjustified war. 6 months later, Mira stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, the first truly joint human-Talri installation, orbiting at the Lagrange point between Earth and Luna. Beside her stood Serinka, their forms reflected in the viewport glass, human and alien, so different and yet united in purpose. "I've been thinking about what you said on Io," Mira said quietly. "About maintaining peace even when facing destruction. I'm not sure humanity could have done that." "Perhaps not today," Serinka replied, their voice carrying the musical quality that humans were growing accustomed to. "But someday, evolution of thought takes time." Mira nodded, then reached into her pocket and pulled out her journal, the same one in which she had questioned humanity's response to the Talri arrival. She opened it to the final page, where she had written a new entry the previous night. "I wrote this," she said, offering the journal to Serinka, who accepted it with gentle reverence. "I'm not a philosopher like you, but I needed to make sense of what happened." Serinka read aloud. "Peace is fragile, trust, even more so. But in truth, we found our strength not in weapons, but in our willingness to forgive. Perhaps what it means to be truly civilized is not how advanced our technology becomes, but how well we learn to overcome our deepest fears." The Talri's sensory filaments rippled with emotion. "You are more of a philosopher than you realize." Mira Solis. Together they looked out at Earth, gleaming blue and green in the distance, and at the stars beyond, no longer just humanity's future home, but a shared frontier. The peace between them remained fragile, as all new things are, but it was real, built on truth rather than fear, on understanding rather than suspicion. And throughout the Solar Alliance, children looked up at the night sky with new wonder, knowing that somewhere out there, friends were looking back.